All right. Now we're going to start with arrows. When we do arrows, what we want to do is we want to keep the arrows as three-dimensional as possible. That will just help enhance your sketch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple sample arrows here, showing you the kinds of arrows that we often use for design sketches. And I'm going to go ahead and do the drawings first, and then I'll come back later and do the renderings on them. Okay, so if you've been following what we've been doing so far with the perspective, arrows are just the same. Okay, when we sketch, I generally try to sketch with the big OK. My hand is being held like a big OK sign because I don't want to put too much pressure on the pencil. I want to keep all the lines in very light construction until I'm ready to pick and choose what I want. Okay, so when I'm doing it, I'm going to go ahead and start here, and I'm going to do a little bit of a light perspective. Okay, and when I'm drawing it, what I'm after is to double check that I'm in perspective first before I actually render in the arrow. So you'll notice that I just drew kind of a basic cube in perspective. And what I'm doing now is that I'm finding the center line. Once I have the center line, I'll go ahead and sketch that out. Now, when I want to put the arrowhead on it, I'll know where the tip of that is. Now, when I want to extend it beyond the left and the right side, the side closest to me is generally just a little bit bigger. So I'll make the side further away from me just a little bit smaller. And what I'll do is I'll just connect the arrows. And remember, we do everything in light construction until we are ready to pick out the lines that we want. Okay, so there we go. So I've kind of picked out my arrow lines. I'm going to go ahead and just darken it up a little bit for you so you can see it. And then I'm going to come back and ink it a little bit later. Now, what I like to do with arrows, I'd like to give it a little bit of a three-dimensional look. So what I'll do is I'll give it a thickness. Not too much, about 1/8 of an inch. Remember, all the vertical lines go downward. And what I'll do here, so if you look at it, the arrow has that bit of a 3D look. Okay, there's all kinds of arrows we can do. So this one is just kind of a pointed diagonal arrow. It kind of shows it's going that way. Okay, let me start another one here. Maybe we want to do a bit of a wavy arrow. So when I wave it, all I'm going to do is pick a perspective, and then I'm going to follow that wave, keeping an even spacing all the way around. Okay, so once I have that even spacing, figure out where my center is. So if this thing were to come out this way, let's say this is cut off here, and then this one is a little bit bigger. And all I'm doing here is giving that a bit of a 3D look. And I think the more 3D your arrows look, the more your drawing will be dynamic. Okay, and I will come back and darken that in a bit with the ink. Okay, let's do another arrow where it's a revolving arrow. When I say revolving, imagine you're unscrewing a cap. Okay, so when we do this, you got to be careful. Okay, perspective still is in play here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the big plus, and this is going to help me establish my left and my right. Now, when I put an ellipse in here, remember your hierarchy, okay? Hierarchy always matters, okay? So what I'm going to do is bring it down 90 degrees. Now remember, your hierarchy, if my last hierarchy was this small, I'm going to cross it at 90, and I need to do an ellipse that's slightly larger than the last one. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break the arrowhead here. So if I separate it, say here, I bring it in here, what I'm saying is that I'm going to make a loop out of this. And then if I want to break it, let's break it right here. Now, everything you have to imagine goes back to that center line, okay? Now, if you'll notice, while I'm on this ellipse line right here, this is raised just slightly higher, roughly about 3/16 of an inch here. So what it means is that from here, I need to raise it about 3/16 of an inch. So imagine that line connecting here, okay? Now, as far as this one goes, this one comes down about 3/16 of an inch. So it goes to here. So it actually goes that way. And what this is going to do for me is that it's going to figure out my perspective. And here you go. That's how you know where these points go to. Okay. Now this one, it tags in straight this way. And the bottom one tags in this way. So now when I cut it, you make a nice loop around. And remember, it's a little bit thicker closer to you and a little bit thinner as it gets further away. Okay, and then the back part of this shows through right here, through our construction. So now we have our completed arrow loop. Okay, let's do another kind of arrow here, where it's similar to the first one. We're going to do the perspective on it. Figure out how far these go. Figure out the big X to find the center. Bring it down 90. Bring it down 90. And what we're going to do this time is that we're going to break the arrow. Meaning that if this were to be a motion arrow, like it's trailing behind, let's break it into segments. So let's say the last one is a very small segment. Leave a gap here. And we leave a slightly larger segment here. Leave a gap here. And we leave the largest segment here. So what this looks like in the end, let's go ahead and touch it up. And you'll notice I'm breaking the arrow up into segments. And what this looks like is that, oh, this is moving. There is motion in this arrow. And so this looks like it's a motion arrow. Now I'm going to be doing a stepping arrow. Okay, first thing is first. Got to do the perspective, okay? So we do the perspective. What I'm doing is I'm constructing a box like I normally do. Okay? Now from this box here, I'm going to bring it down like it's a little bit of a slide, keeping it even, and then following the perspective again. And from here, we will carry on this last perspective. We just keep going in that same basic direction. Now I'm going to go ahead and cap this. Figure out my center. Bring in my line. And here you go. So now I'm going to go ahead and darken this arrow for you. I want to put a little bit of that 3D effect on it, giving it a thickness about 1/8 of an inch. Follow that 1/8 of an inch all the way down. Bring it here and bring it down. So there we have it. There we have our step arrow with a little bit of a slide on it. Okay, the last arrow I'm going to do for you is that I'm going to do what I call the mushroom arrow. First thing we want to do is draw our perspective lines, figure out what that big plus is, figure out how wide your ellipse is going to be. So I'm going to start off with a medium-sized ellipse. I'm going to cap that arrowhead. Now imagine if I were to make a smaller ellipse right here in the same area, and I'm going to bring it down 90 degrees. So this is the stem of my mushroom. And remember, everything follows that hierarchy. This one was not that big. So the one here is going to be substantially larger. And this is what I call the mushroom arrow. It's good for pointing at buttons and stuff that you want to push down. Okay, so now once we have these, we can go ahead and start inking.